Welcome to Community Cocktails with Kimberly, hosted by Kimberly Woodard, a realtor for nearly 20 years with Ebby Halliday Realtors. Join her every first and third Wednesday of the month as she meets with the top community influencers to help you get to know the area you want to call home. Don't just love your home, love your community. And now, your host, Kimberly Woodard.
I am so excited about this episode of Community Cocktails with Kimberly. I have a parenting expert here, Kim Muench here, and I am so excited about this episode because we are all getting back to the grind of back to school, and we've been relaxing this summer. I know my kids, well, they've been on a schedule, but most people vacationing and everything, and now we're getting back to the reality. Welcome.
Thank you, Kimberly. I'm happy to be here with you and to talk a little bit about back to school and anything else parenting you want to talk about.
Yes. So you have 5 kids.
I do.
I can't manage 2. She has 5.
Well, and my kids at this point are between the ages of 16 and almost 34. So while, 10 years ago, it was a lot more intense physically, there's still a lot that goes on with being, parents of adolescent years. And that's pretty much where, I'm in the thick of with my kids. So
it's just different. I always tell people when, they have the little ones and they're like, oh, you're lucky, yours are older, a little bit more self-sufficient. I go, it's just different. I was like, you have different things to worry about. Before you're just worried about them falling. Now you're like worried about their driving.
Right. Big kid, big problem.
Yes.
Right?
Yep. So no. Well, let's talk about, back to school, and parents, we're all stressed out. We're trying to get everything ready. Some tips that you can advise us, to kind of help us through this navigating. Some people, I guess, starting this week, which blows my mind.
Yeah. Well, and I will give you a couple tips. First is be organized. And I know that sounds not like rocket science, but the reality is the more organized you can be, the better, right? The mornings are going to go smoother if you pick out the clothes at night for your little kids, or ask your bigger kids to pick out their clothes ahead of time so they're not freaking out in the morning about it. Simple, easy stuff for breakfast. Making sure that everyone has their alarm set. I know that one of the things that has challenged parents in previous years is kids who want to have their phone in their room as their alarm clock. And we all know that there's a lack of sleep associated with having a phone in your room, and that's not a good idea. What I'm going to advise is what I've done at my house, and that is go to Walgreens or Target and buy a $15 old school alarm clock, or clock radio, right, and have them use that. I mean, we definitely know there's a lot of negative effects to having the phone in the bedroom, and we want our kids to have the best possible success for the day by getting a decent night's sleep.
Very nice. And I'm probably the worst. I have that phone in my bedroom myself. It does go off at 10 o'clock. It's silent, but it's, setting that alarm. I know for myself, I set it like twice. So if I miss the first
if you accidentally just hit 10 more minutes, you've got a second backup, which is really smart. I think all parents should do that. And what I want to say, I think about the most important thing that we can do in terms of being ready for the school year with our kids is, and this is going to sound counterproductive and it's going to sound selfish, but is get in our own routine of self-care. Is, taking good care of ourselves. And what does that mean to you? Everyone's got different circumstances they're living under. Some parents are single parents, some are working full-time outside the house in addition to kids. And what it really means is taking 10 minutes to go, what nourishes my soul? What helps me during the day? I'll give you an example. I have for years woken up and done 10 minutes of meditation every morning. I set an intention for my day and I use the Calm app. I'm on 1,250 days in a row or something like that. But I spend 10 minutes sitting in a chair quietly and just setting myself up for success and calmness during the day. And I also do a lot of walking. Walking is really important to my day. So what I would ask parents or suggest to them is take a few minutes to write down what really nourishes you, what really helps you stay calm and patient with your kids
Right.
and start there. And I know people will say, there's no time for that. I don't have time for that. There's no time not to do that. Like my mission is clear in telling parents that it's not a luxury to take care of yourself. It is a necessity. And our kids will not come to us with their challenges if they know that we're stressed and overwhelmed in our own lives. And our kids need us to be able to be that calm in their storm of growing up.
I love that advice because I know as a working parent myself, some days I do. I mean, sometimes mine is, if I don't do it in the morning, it's that middle of the day, I'll have 20 minutes and usually it's when no one's home because it's usually like 2 o'clock, to 3 o'clock time frame, but I'll take 20 minutes of that. I turn my phone off and I just have to like chill for like, whether I just lay there for 20 minutes or, and I was telling my girlfriends this weekend, we were talking about naps and everything. I said, 20 minutes for me, that's what helps me. And I've like dozed off for 10 minutes. I thought I slept for 2 hours.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it doesn't have to take a lot of time. And if it's not the morning for you, then perhaps it is the middle of the day. I mean, whatever works for you, just be intentional before school starts. And okay, how am I going to stay calm and patient the best I can? Because we're parents, we're not perfect. But how am I going to feed myself so that I can be what my kids need me to be?
Yeah. I love that advice because we're only so good if we're able to be that good for them. And so, and they need to see that because that'll help them as adults and they need to see that,
Right. It always helps me. Like if I think, oh, I can't do this or, is this too much in terms of can't take care of myself in some way? I think to myself, what am I modeling for my kids?
Right.
And so if they don't see that, they will never do that. If they don't see you intentionally going for a walk, if that's something that you need to do, how are they ever going to know? You can tell them, go out and, if you need to calm down, go outside and go sit on the swing for a few minutes or something like that. Well, if you don't model that for them, chances are they're not going to do that. So be who you want your kids to turn into.
Right. No, again, I love that advice because I think it's so true. They're like little sponges and they look up to us and, from when they were little all the way up, and you want them to follow and have, nourish them. So then when they go out and, flood the coop, almost, which I am about a year away from my first one leaving off to college. I want to make sure that he, is ready and that he understands, and has his responsibilities and, that he's able to take care of himself.
Another suggestion that I have for you, depending on how old your kids are, is to shift into being more of a coach than a teacher, right? And so what I mean by that is if your child is struggling with something, instead of rushing in to fix it or to make things better in some way, ask, how can I best support you? How can mom best support you in, let's say it's a homework, a time management, they've got a ton of, problems that they need to get done and they're not getting it done. Instead of rushing in to, try and help or save the day as we want to, as we want to very much as moms, my suggestion is to ask, how can mom best support you? Because what you're doing is allowing them to understand first that you believe in them and their ability. And second, that they need to start coming up with how they're going to be more self-sufficient and help themselves. So how can I best support you? Middle school, high school for certain, even into, third, fourth, fifth grade absolutely can be applicable.
I love that advice too, because again, we do see us, as parents, moms, dads, we want to fix it. We want to just fix it and, do everything for them. But we need to not do that. We need them to learn and be more of a coach versus the, fixer-upper. They're never going to learn.
That's right. That's how you build grit and resilience. And that's one of the things that some of our kids are lacking. So it's up to us to sometimes allow them to have uncomfortable situations and feelings, and that can be so hard on your heart.
Right.
But I guess I've had enough experience in 30 some years of watching my kids flounder at times that I don't say it's easy, but I know how important it is for them to at times fight their own battles and figure out how to get out of choices that they've made.
And I agree with that. My oldest has had some stuff, and he's had some failures, which really were the best things for him, because then he was able to bring success to it. And we've talked about it where if this didn't happen, you probably wouldn't be here today. And so everything happens for a reason. And so taking that concept for that, you can't just expect everything to be on that silver platter. You have to work for it. And he's learned that if he wants something, he's got to work for it. So, well, let's talk about your new book. I am so excited about reading this. I can't wait. She just gave me a copy, so I haven't been able to read it yet. But I will. And let's talk. It says, Becoming Me While Raising You. I mean, I feel like so many of us, get lost. And we were talking about this before our segment. We get lost in our children, as parents, and not really, identifying who we are. And then they leave, and we're like, oh, so who are we?
Yes, we get very invested. And of course, children are extremely important,
Yes.
right? But Becoming Me While Raising You is actually quite a bit deeper than just the parenting journey. So the first part of the book, I talk about the 6 limiting beliefs I unconsciously took on in childhood, which include things like, I'm not worth being heard, and I can't trust myself. And so I operated as an adult while on the outside looking like I had everything together, but I was operating under these beliefs that were really limiting me. And so I identify those beliefs, where they came from, and then I show the reader exactly how this played out in my marriage and in my parenting for many years. My oldest son went through an addiction to alcohol, and so I'm blessed to say he's 11 years sober at this point.
Awesome.
But it was the trials, during those years that he was addicted to alcohol that caused me to also grow up. And it was him, I think this is why it's Becoming Me While Raising You. I think parenting is the greatest opportunity we have to grow ourselves up. And I think our kids, trigger us in ways that no one else will. And that's an opportunity, again, to grow and to look within. So I've shifted those 6 beliefs to beliefs that better serve me and my relationship to myself and to all the people I love most. So it's a layered book. It's a layered book.
Yes, it is. I mean, and again, so much because, being a parent, or, whether you're a parent or a step parent, raising, sometimes you just get so involved that you forget, you get lost in yourself, and, everything, you're doing everything that you think should be done, and not really taking consideration what you really want. And you kind of put your wants and needs kind of aside. And then sometimes, people end up, forming resentment later on, and that's awful. But I think, you really, in order to be the best person to everyone else, you've got to first nurture yourself.
Yeah, and it goes counter to a lot of what we hear in our culture. We are very much wanting to check the boxes and make sure our kids do all the things they're supposed to do, and we get them to all the things they need to be a part of. And in reality, again, they're watching us grow and take good care of ourselves, and our emotional well-being is one of the best things that we can possibly do for them. So most of my kids have read this at this point.
Oh, wow.
And I'll just tell you that my 18-year-old called me. He was in our home state of Wisconsin, and he called me to say he'd read it in 2 days, which is very unlike him, and that he was super proud of me. And then he put it on Instagram. So as a mother of someone who's about the same age, this kid put this on Instagram.
That's awesome.
So it's been really beautiful to see how it's touched my family members, to hear how it's touched so many parents already. So I'm excited to hear your feedback.
I can't wait to read it. And, coming back, people, the expectations, I think, and social media gives that, because everyone, looks at the social media. No one's going to post, anything negative. Everyone's going to post that everything's perfect. You have the perfect family picture. You have the perfect, kids that are winning awards. You never say, "Oh, my kid lost."
Yeah.
You just don't.
Especially in teenagers, because that you have to be sensitive. And I have written many things about my kids over the years, and they're very different individuals. I don't know why I thought my kids would be the same, but they're not.
No.
But I've been very respectful. Nothing I ever write, and my son, who's involved in this book, wrote the foreword of the book, which meant a lot to me. So, but I would never want to jeopardize the relationship I have with my kids by putting something online that might hurt them. However, I have also been very transparent about my parenting experiences and challenges over the years, because I think if we don't talk about these things, people just continue to feel alone and like they're the only ones that are going through it. So it's been really important to me to build trust with my clients, and also to just gain awareness for the challenges that all parents face by being transparent with respect to my kids,
Right.
In those challenges that I've faced.
No. Yeah, it's just I think it's a different world, with the social media. We were talking, I was talking to one of my girlfriends about, just how things have evolved. When we were growing up and going off to college, we'd have cell phones. We just drove for 3 hours, and our parents hoped we made it to our destination. Now we track our kids, and we keep them, and we're sometimes probably a little bit too helicopter-ish on it, and we're just so involved in that, whereas before we're like, do our parents even care? They just they did, but we just didn't have the stuff that we have now.
Right.
And then back to the social media, I think people see things and they do feel they're alone. They're like, oh, well, this, they have the perfect life, or they have the perfect this, or they're not going through the challenges, which everyone does, have challenges. It's just no one wants to talk about it.
Right. But when we take the time to talk about it, we learn that we're not alone, and B, just understand that actually some people, I've run groups of moms, and sometimes they're like, wow, I don't have it nearly as bad as, you kind of walk away from it like, okay, it's either like happening everywhere, or, I don't have it as bad as this person does, and, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I also think one of the last things I would say as a tip for back to school or any time in terms of parenting is to educate yourself on your child's development in terms of especially their emotional development for their age.
Okay.
What's appropriate? We get kind of caught up in what are the red flags of anxiety, and I know a lot of parents I work with are like, is this anxiety? Is this something, that kind of thing, or what do I need to worry about? And what's important is that we know ourselves so that we can really get to know our children. We're not going to know everything about our kids, and we shouldn't. However, having a good gauge on your child and what's kind of getting their kind of energetic vibe, is there something really I need to worry about here or not?
Right.
Takes you getting to know you well. So it's not your anxiety that's coming between you and what might be going on with your child. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because we can ramp up each other's anxiety. So when we're calm, when we're in a good space, we can better assess what's going on with our kids.
That's a great tip, because I think, and I hear so much more than before of anxiety with kids, middle schoolers. I mean, sometimes they're 5th grade, as young as that, but middle school is a tough time, I think, for a lot of kids, the adjustment and everything. Then they go off to high school, and there's so many different challenges. And they do feel the pressures, and they have anxieties, pressure. But if we can't see that because we're all wrapped up in our own anxiety, then it's not going to help them. And then sometimes we see reverse things happen. But I feel like it's so much more prevalent, and I don't know if it's the pressures of society now. The pressures for the kids to, make the good grades, to make the honor rolls, to be the best and everything. If those pressures just, and then maybe as a parent, I don't know if parents, were pushing the kids to be the greatest and always pushing, versus just, letting them be kids.
And we may not even know we're doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is there may be some unconsciousness on our part and living an agenda through our kids because we're excited for them, but it's adding pressure to them. So I think becoming more aware of the words that you're saying with your kids, of maybe the expectation level. We want our kids to do well. There's no question about that. We want them to do their best, right?
Right.
But also to keep in mind that they're not here to please us. They're not here to win awards for us. We are here to guide them into their best self.
Well, I love that, and I love ending on that because that's the best tip. It is. Well, thank you so much. We're going to have a link to. So
the book is available on Amazon.
Awesome. So
It's
we'll have a
an ebook and a paperback at this point.
So
maybe an Audible at some point for those young moms that don't have time to read. I've already been asked several times, so we'll see. But right now it's ebook and paperback.
Perfect. Well, we'll have a link there. We'll have all Kim's contact information. So if you want to reach out to her, you can reach out. And thank you so much. Cheers and back to school.
Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to contact Kimberly with your real estate needs, you can reach her at kimberlywoodard.ebby.com. We hope you enjoyed our guest this week, and remember, don't just love your home, love your community.